Good evening and welcome to the first Next Generation's Patriots episode. If you've watched the news lately, you've probably heard about the unfortunate assassination of Charlie Kirk, who was a beloved conservative political activist. Despite how unfortunate it is, and may he rest in peace, you've probably also heard that the assassin was recently named by Donald Trump on a Fox News interview earlier this morning. In addition to the Kirk assassination, it discussed a range of other issues, some more of which I want to get a little more into. Besides the regular ones like the economy and the border and the indictments, the conversation took a little bit of an unexpected turn. For those who haven't seen or don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put the clip now.
By the way, the people will greet us.
Right.
But they have professional agitators. They're professional.
They're paid.
I had one the other night. I went into a restaurant and this woman stood up. I looked at her immediately. She had money. She wasn't serious. They get paid for it. They're professional from Soros and other people. And we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people. Because this is more than like protests. This is real agitation. This is riots on the street. And we're going to look into that.
What do we do?
You heard that right. Trump just flat out named George Soros and his son Alex, saying their funding network is going to be scrutinized. And honestly, because of their rhetoric and what they have promoted and what we'll get into a little bit later, some of their other funding protests, it raised a question in my head out of all the names, why specifically Soros? Well, firstly, let's look at the money. When I started digging, the first number that jumped out at me was from the 2022 midterms, where Soros gave Democrats about $128 million. Think about that amount of money. That's not just a donation. That's basically the entire campaign funded by one man himself. And it made me wonder, when that much money is coming from one pocket, how much of what Democrats are advocating for now are really the values of what their party members are holding, and how much are just the priorities of the highest bidder who is brainwashing the rest of his party.
So if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
You'll be ousted if you're a Democrat and you don't support every single one of their values. Well, I kept looking back at the history of donations to see if I could see any correlations between the organizations he supported, and to see if this was a recent development, and found that it isn't anything new. A couple years earlier, in fact, in 2020, when the George Floyd protests were breaking out across the country, Soros groups committed around $220 million to what they called racial justice initiatives. Let's think about this for a second. Soros was pumping that much money into activist networks during the exact same months cities are falling apart from the George Floyd riots, that COVID is killing families, and that businesses are being looted up and down the block. Where does he draw the line exactly between funding a cause, as he so puts it, and fueling public chaos? So, after some digging, I wanted to know further what the bigger pattern was behind all of these massive donations. And that's when I landed on the history of his donations on local prosecutors. It isn't the big ones after all. Those cover the smaller ones, the ones that over time add up and impact the nation in its entirety. When I started looking, I didn't see it at first, but after some time, I found Soros's money was quietly backing DA races all over the country. In each one of the areas he funded, the progressive reform candidates soon would win. And then it hit me. All the headlines lately about Ukrainian immigrants getting stabbed on the buses and people getting soft on crime sentences, that's because up to 40% of all murder trials and 20% of the entirety of the US is being controlled by DAs directly funded by Soros and his organizations. And once I saw that number, it really hit me. This isn't just about politics anymore. This is about everyday life. When nearly half of the country's most serious cases are under prosecutors backed by one donor, you start to understand why the streets feel different. Why headlines about rising crime don't match the reality of fewer prosecutions. And this is where Trump's comments in that Fox interview start to make sense. He wasn't just randomly throwing out a name and a random topic compared to everything else he was discussing. He was pointing out that one network is quietly touching elections, movements, and now the justice system itself through its powerful, dangerous network and rhetoric. And then Just when I thought the story couldn't get more surreal, the White House stepped in back in early January. Only weeks after Trump said Soros would face scrutiny once he took office, Joe Biden turned around and awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Again, the Presidential Medal of Freedom is the highest civilian honor in the country. And think about that. At the exact moment people are questioning the reach of his money, the administration chose to celebrate him. That's not just politics. That's symbolism.
Accepting on behalf of George Soros is Alex Soros. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to George Soros. Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world. Educated in England, he settled in America as he became an investor and philanthropist, supporting key pillars of open societies: rights and justice, equity and equality, freedom now and in the future. His inspiring generosity reminds us all of our capacity and our obligation to stand up to the abuse of power and to be guardians of democracy and all people yearning to be free.
It tells you where their loyalties really are and what they want you to think. Because if the money is shaping elections, movements, prosecutors, and now being publicly celebrated by the White House, then what does that say about the power and where it really sits? And it, spoiler alert, isn't with the voters or the common people or the communities, but with whoever can buy the loudest influence. And that's the bigger point here. You don't have to agree with Trump to see what's happening. You just have to look at what he pointed out earlier this morning and ask yourself, do you feel like your voice matters in this system? Or does it feel like it's already spoken for by billionaires? But let's be real. When money has that much pull, it doesn't just tilt the scales of politics. It tilts the culture itself. The movements that get spotlighted, the narratives that get repeated, and even the prosecutors who decide what counts as justice, all of that starts to orbit around the person writing the biggest checks. And when the White House puts a medal on top of it, it's not just endorsement. It's normalization. It tells everyone else, this is the new standard, get used to it. Like Charlie Kirk would have done, we're going to look at this in much further detail and many stories like it. These people can't get away with trying to lie to the public and getting stories and donations to cover up what their real goals and values are.